The grand hall of Zelthara floated in the emptiness of space, a shining beacon of diplomacy and unity, or so it claimed to be. Inside, 72 alien species sat in a perfect circle, their leaders tall, glowing, scaled or shrouded, depending on their worlds, but all focused on one thing: Earth. In the center of the hall stood Ambassador Mara Quinn, a single human, dressed in a dark navy suit, with calm eyes and a sharp voice that had spoken little during the long debates. Above her, a rotating image of Earth flickered as species after species gave their votes. One by one, the voices echoed through the chamber. No, not suitable. Too volatile. Not ready. Too primitive. Each word chipped away at the silence behind Mara's calm expression. She had known this would happen. They had called the humans too aggressive, too emotional, too unpredictable. They were right in some ways. Humanity had grown faster than the Concord expected, too fast. Less than a century ago, Earth was crawling its way into orbit. Now it had colonies on Mars, mining stations in the belt, and whispers of faster-than-light travel technology. That terrified them. Still, the vote felt like a blow. The final count echoed through the hall, 71-1. Only the Vorth, a quiet aquatic race who had always admired humanity's stubborn spirit, had voted in Earth's favor. The head speaker, a crystalline being called Threxol, clicked his mandibles and made it official. Earth is denied full membership in the Galactic Concord. The room fell silent. A few whispered among themselves, already moving on to the next matter. Mara stepped back slowly, her hand gripping a small silver ring on her finger. No one noticed the light flash green as she turned and left without a word. She passed the tall gates of the chamber and walked into the open corridor of the station. Her expression never changed, but her pace quickened. Once inside her private shuttle, she sat alone, the walls humming softly around her. She touched her comm implant and spoke only 3 words: "Initiate Protocol Polaris." No emotion, no anger, just a command. On Earth, deep beneath the Andes Mountains, a massive underground complex came to life. Scientists, engineers, and commanders moved into position. The stellar beacon, buried in the crust and hidden from all scans, began to power up. For now, Earth said nothing. Ships went quiet. Research stations stopped transmitting. Mars locked its orbiters and shut down its external channels. From the outside, it looked like Earth had accepted defeat and gone into hiding. But inside, something else was happening. Humanity had never waited for approval, and they weren't going to start now. Mara stared out the window as stars drifted by. She remembered every insult thrown at Earth during the hearing. She remembered the laughter from the Loxari delegate when they showed Earth's tech. She remembered how the Concord feared war, yet always armed themselves. They had decided humanity's fate without them, but Earth was not finished. Not even close. The galaxy thought it had silenced the humans, but what it had really done was wake them up, and Earth was about to speak in a voice the stars would never forget. For 3 weeks after the vote, Earth said nothing, and that silence was louder than any speech they could have made, spreading like a cold wind across the galaxy, unsettling even the most confident Concord leaders. At first, they thought it was surrender, humans licking their wounds and accepting the decision. But when the Martian outpost stopped sending its usual daily updates, and when Jupiter's moon Europa fell completely quiet, the Concord started to worry, especially when their probes near Saturn simply vanished without a trace, leaving no signal, no wreckage, nothing but empty space where they once orbited. Rumors began to grow. Some whispered that humans were building something huge, hidden beneath their silence. Others said they were abandoning the galaxy altogether, heading into dark space to start anew, and a few feared something worse. That they were preparing for a return, one that would change everything. The Concorde tried to reach Earth, sending peaceful messages, diplomatic offers, even private visits from species that once mocked them, but nothing came back. No replies, no sightings, not even a human trader in the black markets of Tau Velorum. It was as if humanity had vanished, but not like a race defeated, more like a hand pulling back before it strikes. Inside the Concorde Council, panic was starting to show. Cracks forming in the perfect mask of unity, especially when their border scouts picked up strange energy readings near the Kuiper Belt, patterns they didn't understand, pulses of light and gravity that didn't follow any known design. And when a small exploratory drone was sent to investigate, it disappeared just like the others, vanished without a trace. Some blamed malfunctions, others blamed sabotage, but deep down, many began to suspect the truth. Earth wasn't quiet because it was defeated. It was quiet because it was building something it didn't want the galaxy to see. Back on the Concorde Station, Ambassador Mara Quinn had left days ago, and now her quarters were sealed, her shuttle long gone, and no one knew where she was. But some believed she had returned home, to the Andes base deep beneath the crust, where Protocol Polaris had been activated. The stellar beacon's energy signature remained hidden, carefully shielded behind layers of magnetic defense, but it was growing, humming with power, as if waiting for a moment, a signal, a time to reveal itself. Meanwhile, small things kept happening across space. Pirate vessels avoiding Terran routes began to vanish in the void. Concorde ships picked up sudden gravitational distortions near known human paths, and on a lonely moon near Proxima Centauri, a research team found a strange structure made of materials they couldn't identify, stamped with Earth markings, but with symbols that didn't belong to any human language. It was then that the galaxy began to wonder if Earth had discovered something old, powerful and hidden, something it had no intention of sharing. Fear crept into the Concorde halls, and even the loudest voices that once mocked Earth now grew quiet, unsure what would happen next, afraid of the silence that stretched longer each day, like the breath held before a thunderstorm. And in that silence, across 1,000 worlds, the same thought began to rise. What is Earth planning, and why did they go quiet only after being pushed away? Across the galaxy, peace seemed thin and uneasy, like a fragile shell waiting to crack, and it finally shattered on the 74th day after Earth's silence began. When every conquered ship, station, colony and satellite suddenly stopped what they were doing, as every screen, every projection wall, every personal data pad blinked at once, showing static for a moment, then a slow, pulsing blue glow, and without warning, the image of Earth appeared in the sky, not just as a symbol, but as a massive, rotating, living globe surrounded by data lines. Glowing paths of light and energy dancing across its surface, a sight that froze billions in place. Before anyone could react, a voice began to speak, clear, calm, and unmistakably human, though no translator was needed, as the message somehow bypassed all systems, using a technology that even the most advanced Concorde engineers could not trace or understand. It simply was, as if the galaxy itself had chosen to carry the voice. "This is Earth," it began, firm and measured, and even though it was only 5 words, it was enough to silence entire worlds. "You voted without us. You made your judgment. You believed we were not ready, but you forgot something important." The screen changed, shifting to a display of a massive ship rising from Mars, sleek and sharp, far more advanced than anything the Concorde had seen. During their last evaluation of Earth, its engines shimmered with energy fields unknown to Concorde physics, and it vanished into space faster than light with no visible jump drive, shocking even the species who had mastered wormholes. Next came images of deep space mining operations. Humans building Dyson ring segments, tiny at first, then rapidly growing. Thousands of machines working together in perfect silence around a red dwarf near Gliese 581. capturing its energy with unbelievable precision. The feed continued with glimpses of human colonies on icy moons, lush terraform valleys on Mars, underwater arcologies beneath Europa's ice, and orbital stations housing both humans and small unknown alien species, refugees, exiles, or perhaps friends whom Earth had never told the Concorde about. Then came a new image, one that made even the oldest and wisest alien leaders rise from their seats in alarm. An artifact, floating in deep space, covered in glowing glyphs, ancient and powerful, believed to be lost for over 10,000 years. Known only in myth as the work of the architects, a vanished race so advanced that the Concorde had long classified their relics as forbidden zones. And there, beside it, hovered a Terran science ship, calmly scanning the structure and transmitting what looked like successful interface signals. A human crew walking along its surface in specialized suits, not as trespassers, but as if they belonged there. The message voice returned, soft but firm. We have listened, we have learned, and we have built, not to destroy, not to conquer, but to survive, to grow, to protect. And the image now showed human warships, clean designs, black as night, silent in space, but armed with weaponry whose energy signatures pulsed in strange colors never seen before, a sign of new physics, new understanding, and new power. Still, no threat was made, no enemy named, just more images of human doctors helping injured alien children on a burned-out station in the Andari system, of engineers helping rebuild a collapsed mining dome on a non-human world, of human diplomats speaking in backwater outposts, long abandoned by the Concorde, not to gain power but to earn trust. Then the voice said, "You thought silence meant defeat, but we were watching, we were waiting, and now we are ready." With those words, the feed cut and the stars returned to normal, but everything had changed. In every Concorde command center, in every palace and Senate hall, meetings turned into panic, orders flew in every direction, and the Council of Elders called an emergency assembly, arguing whether Earth's message was a warning, a promise, or something else entirely. Some wanted to reach out immediately, others demanded defense protocols, and still others believed Earth had discovered something far beyond what the Concorde could understand. And while the debate raged across the stars, things began to move. Strange gravitational shifts were detected along the edges of known space. Conquered patrols found old listening posts now replaced by sleek human-made beacons, quietly monitoring. Them and traders reported seeing human ships blinking in and out of reality, traveling without jump points or known lanes. No one knew where Earth's fleet was based now, or how many ships they had built in silence, but the message had been clear. Earth was no longer asking for a seat. They were building something bigger, and in the quiet corners of the galaxy, where the Concorde had ignored the cries of the small and the weak, those forgotten races began to whisper Earth's name with hope, remembering the kindness in the eyes of human visitors who had arrived without flags, without fleets, only tools and open hands. Meanwhile, deep beneath the Andes Mountains, inside the hidden command center where it had all begun, Mara Quinn stood before a massive projection of the galaxy, her eyes fixed on a glowing cluster of stars near the edge of mapped space, and she simply nodded to her aide. "Begin Phase 2, she said, her voice calm, her mind clear, as the room lit up with new activity, new plans, and the next step in a journey Earth would take with or without the galaxy's permission. The stars had seen Earth's silence. Now they had heard its voice, and soon they would feel its presence. The days after Earth's message passed slowly, like the ticking of a clock in a silent room, and though no alarms sounded across the galaxy, fear settled in quietly, like smoke after a hidden fire, because Earth had spoken without shouting, had shown strength without raising a weapon, and that unsettled the Concorde more than any fleet ever could. In the heart of the Concorde's central hub, leaders met in secret rooms, far from the public eye, debating endlessly behind locked doors while pretending calm before their people. But no one could ignore what they had seen: the ships that vanished, without leaving light trails, the colonies thriving in isolation, the technology that bent laws of space none of them understood. And worst of all, the image of the ancient architect relic, a myth brought to life beside a Terran ship as if it belonged to them now. Whispers became arguments. Arguments turned into shouting matches as member species divided into camps. Some wanted to reach out to Earth and beg for peace, hoping to be included in whatever came next. Others demanded sanctions, fearing that if humans gained control, they would never let go. And still others urged war, desperate to strike before Earth's strange power grew too strong to contain. But while Concord leaders fought among themselves, strange things began happening across the stars. Ships traveling near Terran space reported gravity shifts that moved like tides, soft but undeniable. Scanners picked up faint signals deep in dark sectors that had been empty for centuries, and pirate fleets that once plagued neutral zones simply vanished without distress calls, leaving only floating wreckage marked with sharp burn scars that didn't match any known weapons. Then came the broken signal from the freighter Kavari Dawn, drifting near the rim, carrying minerals from a distant colony. It had barely escaped after stumbling upon something it was not meant to see. A glowing sphere the size of a moon, hidden in a nebula, pulsing with layered light and rings that moved slowly around it like a living machine, guarded by a single Terran ship that never fired, never spoke, just hovered silently until the freighter turned and ran. The ship's captain, a hardened veteran of the border wars, could barely speak when found, repeating one phrase over and over: "They built it. They built the thing we thought was only legend." And those words spread fast because the idea that Earth had not only found ancient technology, but learned to build it, changed everything. Panic crept deeper into the Concord, with some governments sealing borders and preparing fleets, while others sent private envoys hoping to negotiate. In secret, small member races, tired of being ignored or mistreated, began to question their loyalty, especially after old Concord patrol routes were found, replaced by new navigation buoys marked with strange Earth symbols. Neutral corridors where violence never occurred, even without Concord patrols, and ships passed freely, guided safely by hidden systems that seemed to know every danger before it happened. And though Earth had made no official move, it was clear they were doing something. Quietly, steadily, without asking anyone's permission. The real breaking point came when the Concord Council received a strange message, not from Earth, but from the Vorth, the quiet aquatic species that had once voted alone in humanity's favor, now speaking to the whole Concord in an emergency broadcast from their watery homeworld, stating clearly that they would withdraw from conquered politics and begin forming their own alliance, inspired by Earth's vision of open exploration, mutual growth, and peaceful strength. Within hours, smaller species like the Felari and the Charon announced similar moves, calling Earth a symbol of change, not fear, and within days, the Polaris Accord was born. Not officially created by humans, but clearly inspired by them, a loose network of independent systems and minor species who had never felt safe under Concord rule, but now saw an alternative path. The Concord's leadership tried to downplay it, calling it a fringe movement, but their lies fell apart when a well-known Concord intelligence director defected publicly, releasing classified files that revealed the Concord had long been spying on Earth's colonies, sabotaging trade routes, and quietly blocking human efforts to share technology with non-member species, afraid that Earth's reputation would grow too fast. This scandal shattered trust, and for the first time in 1,000 years, major conquered powers began to doubt the system they served. Protests broke out on core worlds, demanding reforms, calling for peace with Earth. while others screamed for preemptive action before it was too late. Across it all, Earth remained silent again, saying nothing, sending no reply to the Polaris Accord, offering no defense to the accusations, and that silence spoke louder than ever before, as if they had already moved beyond the Concord's games, focused on something bigger. Even as the Concord tried to rally support, more strange reports arrived. Outposts near dark space reported sudden construction on massive platforms with no known origin. Ships made of layered metal that shimmered with invisible light patterns appeared on long-range scans, and energy readings once believed to be impossible were now becoming common near human territory. No one had seen Mara Quinn since her return to Earth, but rumors said she now led something new, a silent command beneath the Andes, overseeing the next phase of Earth's response. Not war, not revenge, but preparation, as if humanity no longer feared exclusion, but had planned for it all along. And the galaxy watched, unsure what would happen next, as fractures grew within the Concord's heart, and the old order began to break under the weight of something they couldn't stop, something that had waited in silence, had spoken only once, and was now quietly reshaping the future of the stars, without asking for permission. In the growing silence that followed the Polaris Accord's rise, something deeper and older stirred in the dark spaces beyond the edge of the known galaxy. And though the Concord was too busy managing its collapse to notice, Earth had already begun watching the signs, reading the patterns, and preparing for what would come next, because they had found something long lost, something not even the Concord truly believed was real anymore. The architects, the first builders, the mysterious civilization that had shaped stars and hollowed planets long before any other race had lifted a stone. It began with the sphere in the nebula, the one the Kovari Dawn had escaped from, which wasn't just a machine, but a beacon, a forgotten key waiting to be awakened. And Earth had done so, not with brute force, but with understanding, solving. A puzzle in light, sound, and energy that no conquered species had ever dared to approach. After that, things moved quickly, though quietly, and Earth's deep space fleet, ships blacker than night, guided by AI minds tuned with neural link captains, slipped into sectors marked as void zones on every conquered map, places abandoned, due to strange phenomena or ships never returning, but where Earth now found ruins, glyphs, and ancient machines still humming faintly beneath layers of cosmic dust. In a gas giant's orbit, they uncovered a station larger than any moon, hidden inside the planet's magnetic storm, its halls filled with shifting walls and gravity that moved sideways. And it was there the first voice spoke, not in words, but in patterns of light and rhythm, ancient but still alive, and Earth listened. They sent no calls for help, no announcements to the galaxy, only quiet signals between their science vessels and the Andes base, where Mara Quinn stood before a wall of moving symbols, learning, watching, and preparing for something she believed was not a discovery, but a return. And as Earth explored further, the galaxy began to feel the change. Though no one could explain it, Concord maps shifted slightly as deep space anomalies faded, new energy lines formed like veins across space, and long-lost systems began transmitting. Pulses matching the old architect signal, waking up as if recognizing an old friend. At first, Concord scientists tried to explain it as gravitational shifts or solar anomalies, but when 3 Concord outposts near the dark region of Sector 9 simply vanished without debris, leaving only strange geometric shadows scorched into nearby asteroids, they began to panic. Earth said nothing, though their ships were spotted more often now, always watching, never interfering, and the Concord started to realize that whatever the humans had awakened, it wasn't just powerful. It was responding to them. And then came the moment that changed everything. A massive station, previously hidden within the folds of a collapsing star, emerged without warning, surrounded by fields of light and echoing with pulses that matched ancient conquered ruins. And when a Concorde fleet approached, the station ignored them entirely, opening instead to the small Terran vessel that arrived 5 hours later, granting it access, while the others were left drifting, their weapons useless, their scanners blind. Broadcasts from the Terran ship showed corridors lit by glowing lines that shifted with the human crew's presence, as if recognizing them, guiding them deeper inside, and finally revealing a chamber of spheres, each marked with unknown constellations that matched no known star chart, until Earth systems aligned one of them with coordinates in the Andromeda Galaxy, a fact that caused immediate alarm across the Concorde. It was no longer a question of Earth finding architect ruins. It was now clear the architects, in some strange way, had returned, or at least their legacy had awakened and chosen humanity as its voice. Panic spread quickly, not because of war, but because the Concorde feared being left behind, their old control meaningless in the face of a rising force they neither led nor understood. And deep within Polaris space, the smaller races rejoiced, seeing the return of the architects not as a threat, but as a chance for change, believing Earth had been chosen not by power, but by understanding, by patience, by silence that listened, rather than ruled. While the Concorde debated launching a preemptive strike, their fleets hesitated. Too many commanders unsure, too many systems now supporting Earth quietly, and too many reports of ships malfunctioning near Terran-marked zones, as if the very space around them refused conflict. And so Earth continued, moving not with armies, but with light and knowledge, unlocking ancient nodes, reactivating stations, and slowly forming a new path through the galaxy, not one of conquest, but of return, of reawakening, and of unity, beyond what politics had ever achieved. The final sign came when the stars above the Helix sector shifted slightly, forming a new pattern that matched an old architect carving found on a dead moon, and on Earth's own moon, hidden beneath its surface. A massive glyph lit up for the first time, unseen by any since the days before recorded history. Mara Quinn stood beneath it, eyes wide, whispering, "They never left. They were waiting for someone to come home." And across the stars, the architect's machines stirred as if in agreement, returning not to rule, but to teach, and Earth had opened the door. The galaxy held its breath as word spread that the Concorde had called for a final emergency council, not in their towering crystal halls on Rethari Prime, but in the neutral zone orbiting the collapsed star of Thalos, an old place where, long ago, the first peace treaty had been signed between warring species before the Concorde even existed, and now, once again, it would become the center of something far greater than anyone expected. Ships from across the galaxy arrived silently, glowing beacons guiding their paths through a maze of dead stars and gravitational scars, while thousands watched from their homeworlds, their screens filled with the faces of leaders, envoys, rebels, and watchers from all corners of known space. No one was sure what would happen, because the Concorde was breaking, the Polaris Accord was rising, and Earth, silent, patient Earth, was now something else entirely, no longer just a species, but a bridge to the past and possibly the future. For many, this council was a last chance to decide what the galaxy would become, whether to fight for control or listen to what the stars themselves seemed to be awakening for. The council chamber was unlike anything used before, built quickly by joint efforts from Concorde engineers and Polaris volunteers. A massive dome of transparent alloy suspended above the event horizon of the collapsed star, with only a layered force field keeping the crushing forces at bay, and its design was symbolic, fragile, dangerous, and still beautiful, like peace itself. Representatives gathered inside, old enemies seated beside former allies, all tense, all waiting. But it was the final seat that remained empty the longest, the one marked with a simple symbol, the Earth sigil, glowing softly in pale blue. And just when whispers began to rise that perhaps Earth would not come, a single ship arrived. Not a fleet, not an armada, just one sleek, black vessel shaped like a blade of light, and from it stepped a woman with calm eyes and a steady walk. Mara. Quinn, known now not only as Earth's envoy, but as the listener, the one who had opened the architect pathways and walked through them unafraid. No guards walked with her, no machines followed, only a small device at her wrist blinking softly. And when she took her place at the center of the council, the room fell so quiet that even the hum of gravity stabilizers seemed to pause. Her voice was calm, even soft, but it carried because everyone was listening when she said, "You feared our silence, and then you feared our voice. But now you must listen to what we've heard, because the architects are not returning. They were never gone. They were waiting for us." The room reacted with gasps, movements, low murmurs of doubt and wonder. But Mara continued, explaining in simple words that Earth had uncovered more than ruins. They had found memories, not in data, but in structures, in energy patterns, in the flow of space itself. The architects had left behind not weapons, but choices, designed for those who reached a point where they would either destroy themselves or rise beyond the need for conquest. And every human step into the void had been a test, not of strength, but of intent. The final key, she explained, had been a question not of technology, but of how humanity chose to use what they found. Not to dominate, but to unify. And the architects had answered by opening the final path, one that now hummed quietly behind. The edge of the known galaxy, a gate leading not to another sector, but another state of being, a place beyond the physical map, where thought and space blurred and a new kind of civilization could be born. She paused then, letting the weight of her words sink in before adding, "This council must choose, not just between war and peace, but between holding on to what was, or stepping into what could be." Some scoffed, some listened, and one by one, voices rose, some arguing Earth had no right to lead, others claiming this was the very reason Earth must lead, and still others begging for time, fearful that rushing forward would mean losing themselves. But through it all, Mara never wavered, simply listening, responding with patience, and at one point activating her wrist device, projecting a massive image into the air above them. The Architect Gate, now fully active, floating beyond the starless region of the Halron expanse, ringed with lights and humming with power, and around it ships from Polaris, from old Concord allies, even a few rogue Concord vessels, all gathered not for battle, but for observation, watching the gate open for the first time in thousands of years. The image held them all, a vision not of war but of choice, and slowly the council's tone changed. Hard voices softened, questions replaced threats, and old rivalries seemed to lose their grip in the face of something so vast, so clearly beyond all of them, and yet somehow waiting for all of them. In the final hours of the council, a vote was held, not to decide who would lead, but to choose whether the gate would be approached as enemies or explorers, as many or as one. And the result came not as a roar, but as a quiet breath of relief. A near-unanimous decision to send a joint delegation, with humans guiding the way, not commanding, but walking beside those willing to step into the unknown. As the council dissolved, ships departed not in fear, but with a strange feeling of wonder, and Mara Quinn returned to her vessel alone, her face unreadable, but her message clear. The galaxy had stood at the edge of itself, had looked into the dark, and had chosen not to fall back, but to step forward. And as the first ships moved toward the Architect Gate, lights blinking across the void, the stars seemed to shimmer slightly, not with danger, but with invitation, because the future was no longer something to be feared or fought over, but something to be built together, in silence, in strength, and in the shared understanding that even in the vast unknown, humanity had finally found its place, not as rulers, but as the ones who listened first, spoke second, and walked with open hands into the light of a new era.